Now that the basketball season is over, we can, of course, focus on football. Condolences to all Iowa Hawkeye fans, but congratulations, of course, on a terrific season by the ladies. And we will talk football here for the next 60, of course, here at Hawkeyes Live, right here at the Voice of College Football. Corey Brada here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, as always, getting together for 141st time. Corey, how you doing today?
Doing good. Doing very good. We're about a week and a half out from the open spring practice, so that's exciting. Lots to look forward to.
I don't know if exciting is the word. I would say that there is a lot of talk out in social media circles concerning the possibility of bringing in a transfer quarterback. And the one that's being talked about, as you well know better than I do, Lincoln Kienholz, who is toiling away at Ohio State, buried in the quarterback room there. But he was a top 10 quarterback in his class, a top 150 player overall. And there's a lot of rumor out there. I don't know how much of it's true. A lot of Iowa fan posts and fan sites. I haven't seen anything coming from necessarily credible sources, but a lot of talk out there considering the Ohio State situation. People are certainly expecting somebody to transfer out of that room of five, maybe two players. And then, of course, Iowa possibly needing somebody to come in and compete.
Yeah, I mean, I know we talked about previewing wide receivers today, which I'm sure we'll do, but I can tell you, I reached out to a source who knows the Kienholz camp, the family up there. He's a South Dakota native, in case people don't know about his recruitment. And can you hear me okay, Mark?
I can.
Okay. All right. I'm like, I can't hear myself for some reason. Anyways, so Kienholz, he's still at Ohio State, as you brought up. The portal window is not open, so nobody can enter the portal, just like Hayden Proctor's not in the portal yet, technically. So Kienholz is at Ohio State. He was a 23 recruit. This is his first spring. This is his first spring. So that's of note. I believe Iowa tinkered with him out of high school, but I couldn't find any evidence of an offer. I guess I didn't look that hard. But the source I reached out to that knows his camp did say that it's quite likely that he's looking for a new home in that open portal window. Now, whether that or not that home is Iowa, I don't think anybody knows that right now. So I don't know where those rumors got started, if they got started on a message board somewhere or just with these random Twitter accounts. So I can't confirm or deny the validity of those reports. There was a report or somebody tweeted something out today about him visiting Iowa. What I gathered from my source that's in the know on his camp, so to speak, is that he's definitely going to be keeping his options open as we head into that open transfer portal window. And I would not be surprised if he considers Iowa based on what I was told. But I don't think it's any done deal, because how could it be a done deal? I mean, unless Iowa's just tampering, I think we like to jump to these conclusions because there's so much of that going on. I think one thing that should be noted, Mark, is he was originally committed to Washington. You probably know this. And then flipped his commitment to Ohio State. Could Kalen DeBoer down at Alabama be interested in him? I don't know what that quarterback room down there looks like. But if he wants to play, I would guess not, because I'm guessing he's not going to go into Tuscaloosa and just be a starter. But he could maybe do that at Iowa, frankly. I mean, if he were to transfer into Iowa, and hey, he should have every opportunity to start. Every opportunity. It should not be Cade McNamara's job. Well, why would it be? So, anyways, we'll see. We won't know anything about, potentially conversations for sure until the portal window and the last spring practice is, again, on the 20th. I'll be there covering that and providing some reaction from the open spring game. Have heard nothing to indicate that Marco Lainez is gaining traction in that room. Not saying he hasn't. I'll be anxious to see him on the 20th, but have heard nothing about anything regarding him making this big jump. But it's hard to gather stuff from these closed practices, and Kirk wants to keep things on the down low for the most part, and I understand that. This comes back to the scholarship conversation. If they're going to bring in anybody via the portal, especially at quarterback, they got to get rid of somebody. And it probably means you're going to have to deal Deacon Hill. I almost feel like we're on the trading block. Like guys are just going to be set to the trading block because you can't just load up on quarterback scholarships, especially with certain people that have proven that their ceiling's not all that high. And with all due respect to Deacon Hill, sounds like a wonderful teammate, great individual. He helped. He was a warm body. He helped them in certain points last year, but he's not the answer long term. So do you keep him around? We'll see where Marco is on the 20th. That'll be the one that I'm interested in seeing. And then, of course, you get James Rezar in there in the summer. That's a lot of running back or quarterbacks if you were to grab a portal entry without losing somebody.
So the first thing to note from me is and correct me if I'm wrong, to make the distinction that you are making. There is one between fan base looking at a situation and thinking, we need a quarterback. We want a quarterback. Boom. That quarterback room is loaded. So we know that there will be some unhappy quarterbacks there because they're highly touted and there's no way they're going to play. Therefore, we want one of those, and making that match and that connection, which there is logic to. But there's a difference between that and there being some tangible evidence of there being a connection between said player and university and football program, and there being interest there.
He's also from Pierre, South Dakota. So capital of South Dakota. That is not that far from Iowa, so he'd be a lot closer to home. If he were to, not saying that that's a priority. I'm just, he's one of the options, right? We even talked about Devin Brown. Like, we talk about these different guys at Ohio State because of what you just said. So again, I want to make very clear, I am not commenting on some random Twitter accounts tweeting out what could very well be malarkey. I'm just telling you, based on what I was told, he is going to be entertaining options and potentially entering the portal here very soon. And I gathered that Iowa would be on that short list. But I also don't think anything, is anything a lock anymore? Like, if you learned anything from the Caden Proctor situation, it's that things can change like that, and then that, and then that, and then that. So, even if, in some crazy world, someone like Lincoln Kienholz has told so-and-so who's connected to the Iowa program, hey, I'm coming. He could change his mind tomorrow. So it doesn't really matter until he's here. And even then he could leave, right? So I'm not going to jump to any big conclusions on this. Today was actually the first day I reached out to somebody because you sent me this alert that you wanted to address it on the show. And I'm like, okay, well, I better try to find some information on this. And I appreciate the individual who was kind of able to give me some info, best he could give me. But we'll see. He's if people have not seen his high school tape, South Dakota football is not known to be any power, but he was highly touted. I mean, you talk about Ohio State wanting him. That's a good sign. That's been a quarterback factory. North Dakota State wanted him. I got a lot of respect for Randy Hedberg. I've talked about him a lot, and it makes sense why they would try to nab a guy from South Dakota. But Randy wanted him. Mentioned Kalen DeBoer at Washington. He had a bunch of other high major offers. He's a natural runner if you watch him. He's about Cade McNamara's height, but he's been in the Ohio State system now for, if he leaves and goes somewhere else at the end of spring, he'll have basically been at Ohio State for a year. I would hope that kind of like the whole Caleb Brown situation, that year benefited him, even though he wasn't playing. And so, yeah, I mean, he's a better runner than Cade McNamara, even when Cade McNamara is healthy. he's a more natural runner. I mean, he's a dual threat guy. Really good basketball player. I think he averaged like 20 a game his senior year for the basketball team up there. He's just an athlete. He's a really athletic guy, and that's what Iowa fans have wanted in a quarterback for a long time. So, yeah, I mean, should Iowa fans be excited about it? I mean, I would hold excitement because, again, nothing has happened. but the prospect of getting a quarterback out of the portal, we know Kirk is willing to do that because he did it with Cade McNamara. And now you have a guy in Tim Lester who can identify and help to develop once said prospect gets to town. If the answer is not on the current roster.
And for me, Corey, the conjecture could always be Lincoln Kienholz is looking for the opportunity to play immediately, which is the first thought I think we all have, is that somebody of that caliber is looking to play immediately. Or maybe he's just looking for a situation in which he thinks, okay, the starter, which I am most likely not going to be able to knock out, is going to be gone after this season. And then I've got a clear path. At Ohio State, he doesn't have hardly any path, as it appears, to get to be the starting quarterback there.
So what is the depth chart at quarterback right now for Ohio State?
I even heard something crazy in the last couple of days that Will Howard, if he doesn't see this as a clear starter's role after spring camp, could take off and think, I'm not definitely the starter here. I may leave. But Will Howard is the presumed starter. I think that's about an 80 to 90% certainty, the Kansas State transfer. Then they've got two hotshot freshmen, but these guys are true freshmen, but they, depending on your service, are either number 1 and number 2 in the country or number 2 and number 1 in the country, in Julian Salen and Aaron Noland. Then you've got Devin Brown, who was a high 4-star, who got his feet wet last year, was given the opportunity to compete head-to-head with Kyle McCord, and apparently took that right down to the wire the last week or two of fall practice. And then you've got Lincoln Kienholz. So there are 5 in the room.
Yeah. One other thing that I was told today is that I know people are going to roll their eyes when they hear this because I've said this before about other people. And what do you expect coming out of a players camp, right? But it's told that money is not the priority. Now, that is consistent, at least with Lincoln, that's consistent with what he said at a high school. I went back and listened to some of his remarks he made when he flipped. He did say that he would have had more opportunity NIL-wise at Washington. And the Ohio State QB's coach, whoever it was, is it the same QB's coach? I can never keep track of the QB or the coaching carousel.
That would have only been a year ago.
Yeah,
so that would have been...
Yeah, that whoever the coach was at that time made the statement to Lincoln, apparently, hey, you need to bet on yourself. And that really resonated with Lincoln and his goals to play in the league and make money there. Now, again, most players are probably going to say that, but I mean, was there more NIL opportunity at Washington than Ohio State? And he says that. I mean, do we know that? I mean, do we know that to be true? I mean, I guess maybe because he would have probably been higher in the depth chart at Washington, but then it's like, well, if he's aiming to play, then he would have had NIL opportunity in Columbus too. So who knows?
Thank you so much, Billy. There it is. There's the name that was escaping me, Corey Dennis. And it's funny. This is how my mind works, or doesn't work, is that I just mentioned Corey Dennis a couple times today. And I couldn't come up with his name like 3 or 4 hours later.
And if anybody missed the segment you published with some of your Ohio State guys on Lincoln Kienholz, they can check it out on this channel. But based on that little bit of conversation I know you had with them during your Ohio State show, it sounds like Lincoln has been, it's not like he's been bad. By reviews in practice, that he's been pretty good, correct?
Correct. And as you mentioned, you went through the baseball and basketball end of it. He's a really good athlete. And also, if anybody wants to look at the numbers, because I saw this posted a couple times on social media today, I think after I had posted the notice of our show, that people were basically making comments about, oh, he looks like an Iowa quarterback. Check out his stat line against Missouri in the Cotton Bowl. Yeah, he had a rough time against Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, but watch the game, folks. He was under siege. When he had the opportunity to drop back and plant his right foot and deliver the football, I thought he looked good.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch some of that tape, but I have so much confidence in what Ohio State's doing, what they continue to do at that position, more than probably any other school in the country. That's crazy to say, but in fact, I was just having a conversation with someone the other day about the mock draft and just the different quarterback prospects. I was talking to a Vikings fan about, where will Minnesota go? Now that they're stuck with Sam Darnold at quarterback, do they make a play for a JJ McCarthy? Do they go, what's his face from the ACC whose name escapes me? Who am I thinking of?
Jordan Travis?
No, not Travis.
Travis May.
Travis
May.
Drake May. Yep. Drake May. But Jordan Travis is one we didn't mention. But anyways, Ohio State year after year. I mean, this is kind of the outlier year where they don't, like, Kyle McCord gets up, transfers to Syracuse. I think most people kind of felt like that was because he wasn't cut out, or how would you explain that to someone? His reason for leaving Syracuse. More and more people are doing that, not just on the player side, on the coach's side. Heck, we just saw John Calipari leave Kentucky basketball this week for Arkansas basketball because he doesn't feel welcome. Now, some of that's probably NIL opportunity and whatnot, but guys see the writing on the wall and they leave. That's happening more and more now. In fact, it just happened. Who was it that just did that in, was it football or basketball? Somebody in the Pac-12. SMU. Who's the new SMU coach? Is it Enfield? I think
we're basketball coach.
Talking about basketball, yeah. He just left from USC to SMU. You think, what in the world? But SMU's an ACC school now, and I think maybe there was some pressure there. So that just seems to be more commonplace now with players and coaches. People leave for various reasons before they're even on the hot seat. Look at Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly didn't get fired, but now he's an assistant coach.
Yeah, who would have years ago left the status of a UCLA head coaching job to become a coordinator somewhere else? That did not happen. And one last note about the quarterback situation. I don't know that I would feel any differently about this situation if Cade McNamara, let's say he was coming off of that Michigan season in 2021, playoff season, really good stats, and coming in as the starter, and did not have the 2 prior seasons that we're looking at that have been underwhelming. Plus, of course, the injuries have compromised him greatly, because you're still looking at a situation where Cade McNamara is most likely going to be out the door. I got to think at this point, 2020 was his first season. Yeah, that he's out of eligibility after this year. That why not still look for your next quarterback, whether that's to directly compete with a Cade McNamara circa 2021, or to just groom him for the next football season.
Yeah, how could you I really have a lot of respect for Cade McNamara, and I think he could lead them to where they need to go this year, just like I thought last year. But just as there were some injury concerns heading into last season, there are even more now. He's had 2 serious injuries that have ended seasons, cut seasons short, and he's proven to kind of be prone to injury. He wasn't real mobile before. All right. His ceiling is probably not the highest, even when healthy with his arm. He doesn't have the biggest arm. Now, that's the glass half empty approach. The glass half full approach, Mark, is he's led a high major program to a Big Ten championship and college football playoff berth. He sounds like he's a leader of men. He's really experienced. He's smart. All those things. Pluses, pluses, pluses. But the job of this coaching staff, and specifically of Tim Lester, is to make this quarterback room as strong as it can be. So, like, I saw the comment earlier from Jason, and I understand where he's coming from when he says Lincoln would be a nice pickup. I just wonder if Kirk will recruit over Cade. That's a problem. If that's happened before, I mean, I think back to 2.5 years ago, Mark, and you and I were just getting put over a barrel each and every week by the fan base because we were complaining about Iowa not going to the portal at quarterback. We complained about that for like 2 years. And then what happened 2 years later, they finally oblige. Obviously too late in the process. They finally oblige and go to Cade McNamara. Everybody celebrates it. But during that 2-year process, when we were, raking that idea over the coals over and over again, it was like, this is what you have to do. But people responded by saying, you can't recruit over players. What's going to happen to the current room? That's such an antiquated way of looking at this now. And So like, but I just find that humorous that now everybody's on board with the portal because they did it once with McNamara, and they don't like DeJean, and they don't like the injury risk. So I've always been an advocate for going to the portal at quarterback, but I also try to be somewhat balanced. I said a few weeks ago that I wasn't sure that Iowa should go to the portal at quarterback because I have a lot of confidence in the upside of Marco Linez. But like I said at the outset of this show today, I have not heard anything so far. And I've not been to a practice, but I've not heard anything to give me indications that Marco Linez has taken a jump this spring. And I love Marco Linez. I've said that before. I love who he is as a prospect, as a person. Got a great head on his shoulders, great legs. But has he developed as a passer where he's ready to take the reins? I don't know about that. And how can you put your chips on Cade McNamara's legs? So with that being said, yeah, why on earth would you like if Cade is intimidated or is upset about Iowa bringing in someone else? Here's a guy coming off 2 serious knee injuries and who only has 1 year of eligibility left. Then let Cade enter the portal. Like, this is the day and age where it's like, see you later. If you can't deal with competition, see ya. And Mark, that's how you've got to be. I really do believe that. I mean, you don't want to lose people, but if it comes down to losing people because of the fear of competition, then those are not the type of competitors that you want, especially at that quarterback position, in my opinion.
Look at the best programs in the country. My goodness, they are stacking rooms of talent. And the quarterback position's different. Only one guy plays. But they are not basically saying, okay, we're going to put this guy over here in this corner and put him in a glass container because he's the starter and he's got the job and we're not going to bring in any competition for him. That's not what's done elsewhere.
I mean, that's what's crazy, Mark, and I understand where Jason's coming from. I really am not taking a shot at Jason. Do appreciate him being on the show all the time. But what's funny is people made that claim when you had Spencer Petras and Alex Padilla as your top 2 quarterbacks. People were saying that then. So, I mean, I understand it a little bit more when you have somewhat of a proven commodity in Cade, but given the situation, like, I don't know that is there any quarterback in the country that if you're a coach, you would say, I'm not going to bring in someone else because I don't want to lose my quarterback. Like, unless you just maybe like a Dylan Raiola, you just have so much confidence that he is your guy. But even then, injuries happen. And if he's not up for having a solid backup, then what kind of teammate and competitor is he? That's how I view it.
Absolutely. That's how I view it. And if both players, meaning Cade McNamara and Lincoln Kienholz, reach their ceiling, Kienholz is the better player if he reaches anywhere close to his ceiling.
Yeah. And maybe, again, Tim Lester, I don't know that he was asked about this during his press conference. This will be a question and maybe he was, and I apologize if he was, but this is something that I look forward to asking him if we don't get a chance to talk with him a week from Saturday in August at Media Day. How does he feel about playing 2 quarterbacks? Because we know how Kirk feels about it, but if you had like a Cade McNamara and a Lincoln Kienholz, it may be a situation just like a rookie in the NFL or a second-year guy in the NFL where you have a veteran ahead of him that starts the season and you work Kienholz in and work him in places. And sometimes that's for the best. And then you have options. Like if a guy goes down, hey, we have 2 guys who have played this year. And yes, they bring different skill set to this room and this team, but they're both game ready. Obviously, you'd rather have a guy in Kienholz. Like even if you bring in Kienholz, Iowa fans shouldn't be like comfortable if Cade just goes down week 1 and Kienholz is in there, because he's never played. He played a little bit. You said at Mizzou? How many snaps did he get at Mizzou against Mizzou?
He threw 17 passes in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, that's good. That's good experience. That's better than nothing. That's better than
a really good team.
Yeah, it's a lot better than Caleb Brown and what he had heading into Iowa. But both of these guys, Caleb Brown and Kienholz, were both 4-star recruits. But as Caleb Brown proved last year, that doesn't always mean you're just going to come here and turn it on, even in a position of struggle. You think wide receiver hasn't been a position of struggle? We'll talk about that today, Mark. But Caleb Brown has not just lit the world on fire since he got to Iowa. He struggled with drops and fundamentals and whatnot. Can we address this comment in the chat? Because I see, I think Chad's maybe getting a little frustrated with us. He says, is Lincoln Kienholz visiting? I can't tell you one way or the other on that. I know there's social media talk. I was told today, if you just joined us, Chad, I was told today from a source that is close to the Kienholz camp that he is going to be exploring his options and that Iowa could very well be on the list. But that's a pretty broad statement. I mean, I just hate to make any conclusive statements a week and a half before the portal window opens because who knows what happens then. And he's not even supposed to be able to be contacted by schools yet. So, like, even if he said in his mind, maybe he's got a connection to Iowa and he's like, I want to be closer to home and I like Tim Lester and I want to be there. What if, like, a Clemson or someone's waiting for him to enter the portal on the 20th and then they say, hey, you want to come here? You're going to be our starter and we're going to offer you this much. Everything changes then. So, is Lincoln Kienholz visiting? Maybe. But I have not been told anything that would make me comfortable repeating that as fact.
And your sources are much more reliable than mine. Mine are picked off of social media concerning this situation. And I have seen people conjecturing, and they may know something, but I have no reason to believe that they do know something, that have said Lincoln Kienholz is going to be visiting.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I hope that's true. I hope that's true. When does Ohio State's open scrimmage?
This Saturday.
This Saturday. And is that going to be televised?
It's on Fox.
Okay.
Their spring game is on Fox.
Let's not address that, okay? Okay, it's on Fox. So what time is the game?
11 a.m. your time.
Okay. All right. That'll be interesting. I mean, if you're an Iowa fan, I'd be watching that spring game. I mean, seriously, because there have been we talked about Devin Brown before. Like, maybe he ends up being a guy Iowa targets. That quarterback room is stacked. So, what else do you have to do this Saturday? Like, I'm serious. Basketball's done. There's Iowa.
You can always record it.
We'll record it. Yeah, but what else is there going on besides? I mean, maybe you have a wedding or something. If you think that's important, fine. But Ohio State spring game. It's on Fox. Mark, I have to bring this up before we go, and we don't have to stand.
I know what you're going to bring up.
What am I going to bring up? What am I going to bring up?
I know what you're going to bring up.
18,000 viewers. 18,000.
Million would be.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. 18,000 wouldn't be bad at all. Would be bad. But 18 million. I mean, you got to admit, that's crazy.
It is.
I would have never expected that. Ever.
It's only 1 million less than the Ohio State-Michigan game last year.
I looked that up this morning. I'm like, how much is Ohio State million? Because you follow this stuff a lot closer than I do.
And that was a very high year for that game as well. So I'm not pretending like that's the figure for Ohio State-Michigan every year.
No, I'm blown away by that number. And again, with Caitlin gone, who knows if that can in any way remain for the postseason, these big games, but it's something that I would have never anticipated.
I highly anticipate that that's going to have a large impact on the game going forward in a positive way. It may not be able to be sustained at that level, but certainly there are going to be large portions of this country that are going to stick with women's college basketball.
And that's from a selfish standpoint. First of all, I've grown to love women's college basketball, at least Iowa specifically. I'm not sitting down watching, LSU and Kentucky, but like, it's good for business for me. I mean, because these Iowa fans on the channel, they love them some Iowa women's basketball, and I love talking about it. So it's great. I would have never expected it even a year ago with Caitlin Clark's second to last season. I would never expected the jump that we saw this season. So, and it was incredible. Really, really. I mean, I say this genuinely. I know I try to take an objective look at this team, and we did like a 3-hour post-game show with Kasheen Alexander on Sunday. But like it was, I tweeted this out Sunday night. I genuinely felt a different type of sadness Sunday because I do think, and we've talked about how generational Caitlin is and what she's done for the sport. I think it's like we've all appreciated that, but I think some people to different levels. And these last couple of weeks have started to maybe fully realize that she could have the type of impact on this sport. Let me make sure I'm clear on this. the type of impact on this sport that the greats in so many other sports had on their respective sports, whether that be Tiger Woods, Muhammad Ali, Michael Jordan. Now, it may not translate to the pro level. You and I have talked about that. We'll see. But I do think we're going to look back and be like, wow, what not just a player, but a group of seniors. It's just sad to see them all leave on the loss, but yeah, what a 2-year stretch for that group to get to 2 national championships, and played really well Sunday at stretches, but just they were playing a team with a giant inside that was 6'7", and a lot of other really skilled players. So anyways, sad to see it all come to an end, but it was a fun ride.
I was out and about on Sunday afternoon, and I heard a first half score. And the first thing that I thought of was, why is this game being played in the afternoon? The women's national championship game was always played on Sunday night.
Well, last year it was afternoon as well.
Oh, okay.
Both years it was after. I don't know why. You would think they'd get even better ratings at night. If you're on ABC in the evenings, you'd think you'd get even better. I don't know. And what's really strange is that UConn game Friday. That game was late. That game was extremely late. They finished that game. I mean, especially if you were a UConn fan, that game ended at like midnight. So, I mean,
yeah, I think you just answered my question for me. The women's national championship game used to always be on ESPN. So it's been moved to ABC. It was on ABC?
It was on ABC and ESPN.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they weren't bringing 18 million on ESPN exclusively. that was
because not that they couldn't have at one time, but the universe of ESPN viewers has shrunk so much.
Yeah,
30 million.
Yeah,
less. Subscribers.
I find that odd too. It's kind of like how they've scheduled Big Ten baseball tournament. Some of these schedules, like with quick turnarounds, don't make any sense. And I think TV dominates a lot of it, but why, what was going on ABC late? You would think that maybe that'll change next year, given the fact that they brought in these numbers.
Yes.
But you'd think they'd be like, okay, we have to make this a priority over everything else. But anyways.
Because yes, it's a primetime event for a primetime audience on ESPN. And I'm talking before this phenomena. I'm talking about when it was drawing, I don't know, probably 4 to 6 million viewers 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So ESPN's universe shrinks. So I understand the moving to ABC, and then they figure, okay, this can't compete. We want to capitalize from a national over-the-air audience, but it's not going to compete against whatever we typically show on Sunday night. But then, like you say, these numbers may get them to reconsider for next year.
Yeah.
Because there are not primetime shows on network television anymore, I don't think, getting 18 and 19 million viewers.
Yeah. No, I've been a huge homer with these discussions with you about viewership and women's college basketball, but I really was just like blown away when I was looking at those numbers and how they compare to other events. But good for the sport, good for Iowa, good for everything. It was fun to do post-game coverage as long as we did, and we'll be back next year. It'll be different, but we'll do it again next year.
Speaking of viewership, we've got about 230 watching right now, and about 70 or 80 of you are watching on X. So we just want to let you know we appreciate you catching our show on Twitter/X. But keep in mind, for comments, questions, all of that, please join us on YouTube. And we do this each and every Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 Central. So keep that in mind. Join us on YouTube right here. And the audio is posted by Corey from the Hawkeye of the Storm. So you can catch that on any of your favorite audio platforms from the Hawkeye of the Storm, this show and other audio uploads by Corey. Dave is stopping by with this one. Thank you so much for that, Dave. What is Iowa going to do now that Cooper DeJean is gone?
Well, first of all, do you see some of Cooper DeJean's pro day numbers from yesterday?
I did not see them, but I saw that there were headlines about how good they were.
They're pretty darn good. Coming off pretty significant injury. Let me read you. This is from Dane Brugler, who's a draft analyst for The Athletic. 4.43 and 4.45 40-yard dash, 38.5-inch vertical, 10.4 broad. I mean, I made a comment. I spoke with a friend of mine over at RTI Threads. They're one of our sponsors. I got the RTI Threads shirt on today. And they've had a relationship with Cooper for quite some time because they have his athletic merch, and they actually have an NFL draft line right now available over on their website. But it's interesting. I made the comment to him. I said, I'd like to know, and I couldn't, maybe Todd McShay or Mel Kiper Jr. or some draft analyst could answer this question, I'm sure. But how does a scout weigh a situation like this where a guy's not able to compete in the combine, but he returns to health to where he can perform this well at a pro day? If you're a scout, how do you weigh that? It can't possibly be weighed the same, right? As being at a combine. But boy, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are looking at those numbers and looking at that performance yesterday and saying, maybe we had him too low on our board. I don't know where he's at on mock drafts. I'm really not following that as much as maybe some people are. I did know that Dane Brugler also tweeted out that he weighed in at 202. So medically cleared less than 2 weeks ago. And he's putting up those types of numbers. I mean, that's just, I don't understand that. That doesn't even seem possible. I mean, 4.43? 4.43 and 4.45, less than 2 weeks removed from a serious injury.
Well, to his credit, it sounds like he has done the prudent thing and made sure that he is fully back.
Yeah.
And able to post his best numbers or something very close to his best numbers.
So maybe he could have went to a combine and competed and wouldn't have put up great numbers, but he's saying, hey, I can get a pro day in and there'll be excellent numbers, and I'll take that over a subpar combine score result.
And risk re-injury.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right, folks. Also want to let you know that on April 15th, we've got a new show coming to the Voice of College Football, bright and early at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 Central for you folks in Iowa. Wake up college football. So join me each and every weekday right there, 8 a.m. Eastern Time.
Where's the moon in front of the sun, Mark? You got
the moon in front of the sun?
Yeah.
Oh, for the eclipse. Yes, I was a little slow on the trigger there.
Did everybody see? Did you watch any of the men's championship last night?
No.
Okay. It was pretty boring, actually.
I watched the final.
I watched a lot of it on mute. I was bored out of my mind through a portion of that game, but Charles Barkley, they had his head as the moon eclipsing the sun during the broadcast. So anyways, always enjoy the Inside the NBA. Do you ever watch Inside the NBA? I know you're not an NBA guy.
I did years ago. Yeah. Oh, it was a great show.
Great show.
Great show. I don't really appreciate those guys doing March Madness, though.
No? Why?
No, they don't cover college basketball. And then they flood into the studio in March.
Yeah, I know.
Like they know what's going on.
But frankly, I'd rather hear from Charles and Kenny than Seth Davis, who's also on or John Rothstein. Although John Rothstein probably covers the sport better than almost anybody else. But some of those guys, I think, just like to hear themselves talk. I've been accused of the same thing, Mark. So do we want to look at wide receivers? We got about 15
Let's
minutes.
do it. The wide receivers. This is what I'm looking at on the depth chart here, Corey. I'm looking at Seth Anderson, Caleb Brown, and Jacob Bostwick as Jacob Bostic as the proposed starters. Now, I got that depth chart off the Athletic.
Wait, say that again. Which one of the three?
The Athletic is posting starters being Seth Anderson, Caleb Brown, and Jacob Bostic.
And maybe that happens. I'll give you a name here to start that I think people really should look for this spring, specifically on the 20th, and that's Jarrett Bowie. Heard good things. I've heard good things about him. His name came up the other day in a discussion I had with someone, and he is apparently having a really good spring, and he believes This is what you want in every player, right? Belief that you can compete and play and be a starter. He believes that he's got a shot at being maybe a first stringer for this team. So yeah, Caleb Brown, as talented as they come, had some problems with drops last year, but boy, I would hope, even though it's John Budmeyer, I mean, we can spend some time talking about that peculiar hire. I do think that's the disappointment of the offseason as it relates to decision-making, coaching decision-making. I don't think it's a Tim Lester hire. I think it's the John Budmeyer promotion. So even though John Budmeyer is coaching Caleb Brown, the sheer talent of Caleb Brown, upside, fluidity, and his route running, got really soft hands. Again, even though I know he struggled with drops, go back and see why he was rated so high coming out of high school. Hopefully he takes a big jump forward. Seth Anderson, I like Seth. He had a nice start to the year. In fact, last year against Utah State, week 1, has, I think, maybe the longest passing touchdown of the season. It probably was on play action from Cade McNamara. So, he's a guy with good speed, good physicality. Hopefully he can emerge and be an actual everyday starter, because he was not that last year. Now they lose Nico Ragaini, as you well know. So yeah, Caleb Brown, certainly Seth Anderson. I think Jarrett Bowie will probably end up competing for that other spot along with Jacob Bostic. And then, I mean, you have some young guys. Dayton Howard's a second-year kid who redshirted last year. You've got Alex Moda, who's also on the roster. He's a redshirt guy who I'm sure he played in some game or games in as a freshman, but did not burn his red shirt. And then I'm missing somebody. Well, Jarrett Bowie. Jarrett Bowie's just in his second year, and this is his first spring. So, you always just kind of read between the lines of that. You got a kid like this who didn't even get a spring last year, and he's already maybe making some headway. That's a sign, right? And then hopefully you get Cade McNamara back healthy, or whoever the starter is in fall camp can build some solid chemistry. But that's obviously that position has been such a destitute, parched position for so long. We have these conversations every year about who the top guys could be, and every year they underperform. So the question is, will that ever change? I hope. The one hope, Mark, is that they have a different wide receivers coach, even though I don't love the hire. And the bigger hope is they have a different OC who has had good receivers in his systems in the past. That's positive. So,
and unfortunately, the last time it changed, Corey, it changed for somebody else. It changed for Purdue. That's where it changed.
What changed?
One of these guys breaking out, becoming a big-time player.
Well, yeah. I mean, 2 of these guys, bro. Let's not forget about Tyrone Tracy. Now, granted, he switched to a different position, but there's a skill set guys at wide receiver at Iowa, goes to Purdue and ends up having a really good year as a back. I mean, that's just the result of, I think, partly the result of system and fit. But yeah, I mean, as a whole, the offense needed a new leader. We don't need to rehash that. The only other guys that I guess I failed to mention, they do have a couple walk-ons who have seen some time. Reese Osgood's a guy who's been with the program here. I think this is year 3 for Reese. You've got Alec Wick, who's an experienced guy who has been on the depth chart at times when they've been really thin. And I'm missing some. Caden Weegan. He transferred in from Iowa Western a couple of years ago and has seen some action as a runner out of the backfield, actually, on some sweep action and whatnot. So, maybe you get one of those guys involved. I still abide by the theory that their best chances of finding playmakers are off guys that were worthy of a scholarship out of high school. Not always the case, but I would venture to say that. I think Don Patterson would be ashamed of me that I can't say this with definitivity. I think Kevin Casper was a walk-on coming out of high school, correct?
Number 87, Kevin Casper. I remember him well. I don't know what his recruiting status was.
There's another one to watch, Mark. Does Kyler Casper enter the portal in 2 weeks? I don't know where he's at on the Oregon depth chart. Has not really played at all here. It's his second, 2 years in. Will he enter the portal? That's possible. I'm just saying that. I have not heard anything about it, but that would be another one to look for, because you got a new OC now. they lost to Oregon when Brian was there and Kelton Copeland was there. And now you got a new group. Kevin's still a huge Iowa fan, obviously. So, anyways, yes, Jason says Kevin was a walk-on.
Yeah. And I don't think Kyle is going to be playing much at Oregon, from what I know.
You don't think Kyler will?
I don't think this season, I don't believe so.
Well, there you go. I mean, guys, how long do you stick around? Now he's going to be playing in the Big Ten. So, maybe a little bit of a systematic adjustment as it relates to style a little bit. I think Oregon will be able to maintain what they do, but yeah, that's another one to watch.
We got 2 questions for you, 2 very different questions. So with what we see on this wide receiver core right now, do you see any potential of any of these guys? And I would think Caleb Brown and Seth Anderson would be the 2 guys to point to, although you're high on Jared Bowie, that could become a first-rate Big Ten wide receiver. Have you seen enough? Anderson only caught 11 balls last year, and Caleb Brown caught like 20.
Caleb Brown, you'd have to go Caleb Brown if there's anybody with the potential to do that. And I base most of that on the fact that he was a high 4-star recruit out of high school. He's the highest rated recruit to ever come to Iowa. Ohio State wanted him. Like, those are the things that I point to. I've not seen him enough. I just hope he's taking a big jump because he really did struggle with drops last year. And he is really, really talented. He's really skilled. So he's as natural and as athletic of a player they've had at that position for a long time. So yeah, Seth Anderson, good bloodlines. His dad was an all-time receiver in the NFL, holds the record for single game receiving yards in the NFL. He was a really good wrestler in high school. He's a really good athlete. We were talking about Kienholz earlier. Seth Anderson was an excellent athlete, had opportunities at other Power 5 schools, so maybe he could emerge. Jared Bowie's dad played in the NFL. People don't know Jared Bowie. His dad was played at South Florida and then played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I believe was a defensive lineman, I think. I'm going to look this up here.
I would be curious because that was probably at a time when I knew just about everybody.
Yeah, Jared Bowie. Let's see here. Defensive end. He was actually signed by the Bucs as an undrafted free agent. And let's see here. He was ranked the 22nd best defensive end by Rivals in his class. This was back in, let's see, when did he? Seffner, Florida, undrafted 2009. Now, it's not like he had a long, voluptuous career. I'm just saying he was a good player at South Florida and then got drafted by the Bucs. Let's see, college career. Yeah, 2007, he started 9 games, made 26 tackles, including 6 tackles for loss, a sack, 2 fumble recoveries, 13 QB hurries. 2008, he started and played all 13 games, finished the year with 5 sacks, 31 tackles, 3 quarterback hurries, and 2 pass breakups. What was South Florida like in 2008? Was that a good program?
In 2007, South Florida rose to number 2 in the country.
Oh, there you go. He was
fairly late in the season.
He was there's the reason why you have a guy who didn't fully emerge as a starter until his senior year getting a chance in the NFL. I think he played most of his career in the CFL I think CFL and UFL.
Okay.
But yeah, my point is good bloodlines. So maybe Jarrett can be the guy. And you talk about physics. We keep talking about athletes. They've got good raw athletes there. Alex Mota was a receiver at Marion. Really good track athlete. And Dayton Howard is a 6'5" wide receiver in a tight end's body. Yes, he didn't have any other offers coming out of high school, but really good baseball player, kind of emerged late down in Kansas City. So they keep talking about these raw guys. It's just, do they have the personnel on this staff to tap as much potential out of these guys as possible? We'll find out.
And then my other question is just, again, this Charlie Jones situation. at the time, let's see, this was in 2022. He was with Iowa in 21. Okay, so we had done shows for about a year at that point. I just remember sending you DMs right out of the gate. Week 1, he's on the field against Penn State. and he's getting like 100 yards at halftime. He's just tearing them to shreds. And I'm like, look at that. Are you watching this? And it never stopped the whole season.
And if I'm not mistaken, he played last year for the Bengals. Let's see, had 7 receptions, 64 yards, but I believe he returned. Yeah, let's see, at 23 punt returns, 10.8 yards per return. I have no idea if that's good or not.
It's pretty good.
1 touchdown, long of 81 yard.
Oh,
I mean, that, for rookie year, right? Coming to the NFL and playing as a rookie, and kid out of his former walk-on out of Buffalo.
There aren't a lot of punt return touchdowns in the NFL. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, Charlie Jones was pretty impressive back at Iowa in that position. So,
all right, folks, we do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Make it back here each and every Tuesday. It's at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 where it counts. And we've got a Nebraska show that we line up a half hour after we get done here. So in 1.5 hours, we get together with our guy, Justin Adams, over on the Nebraska channel to talk Huskers. So if you want to go over there and trash talk, troll, whatever you want to do, we will be there talking Nebraska football. Corey, what's going on? I know that you're probably enjoying a couple days respite from the college basketball season.
Yes, I'm taking a few days here, Mark. It's been wild, but we'll have a podcast here coming out sometime this week with another football recruit. So we'll have that published and probably kind of provide some thoughts on the women's basketball season as a wrap up, and then we'll have some. Going to be producing a video here soon on a incoming Iowa men's basketball recruit, Chris Tajo, who's an NBA Academy kid who will be here in 24. Fans should look out for his name. He's an athletic forward that Iowa needs desperately, especially on the glass. And next week we'll be down there in Iowa City at Kinnick for the spring practice. So we'll keep people posted on coverage. I don't know if we'll have a live show that day or if it'll be the next day. We'll find out, figure it out. But plenty to come. And yeah, I'm trying to think we got baseball in full swing. I'm not doing post-game shows each and every day for baseball, but I'm sure we'll do some postseason stuff there. And before you know it, it'll be summer and we'll be counting down the days, right? It's not often that it's these last 2 years have been special in the sake that we've had, women's Iowa basketball to talk about so late. It's very rare that we have this, women's basketball until at least early April, but makes for a shorter off season, I guess.
Has Iowa's women's program been really good in the past?
It's been really good under Lisa Bluter, really solid under Bluter. This was their 3rd Final Four appearance in the history of the program. So they've made 2 in a row. They had 1 Final Four appearance previously, and then I think 2 years before Caitlin got there, was it the year before? The year before, the 2 years before, when Megan Gustafson was a senior, they did go to the Elite Eight and got beat handily by Baylor. So they've had good tournament success, but I mean, these last 2 years are just so unprecedented. I think that's part of the sadness from a lot of the fan base. I had a couple people reach out to me Sunday on Twitter and like, man, how much of a gut punch is this? Because are we ever going to see another opportunity to the national title in one of the 3 or 4 sports that most people care about? And I'm like, I don't know if I can say yeah. Somebody asked that about football. Like, you and I had a conversation. Will Iowa win a national title in the next 50 years? Maybe, I hope, but do I have reason to think so? Not necessarily. So, it's just been a special thing that hopefully people didn't take it for granted, because it doesn't come around every year.
And consider doing something live for the spring practice. You're the only source people will have to any kind of live coverage. It's not on TV.
Yeah, unfortunately, so I'll answer that. Unfortunately, I've been told that Iowa does not allow live streaming from inside the stadium. So they don't even allow, I was told they don't allow live streaming around the concourse. So take that as you may. Now, as it relates to this is one thing that I think we're going to try to do. I know, Mark, you're going to probably think this is crazy, but we're gonna see what works, see how it works. We are planning. DeJean Alexander and I are planning on a post-game show for the Indiana Fever's first game of the season, because Caitlin Clark will be drafted a week from yesterday. She'll be number 1 overall to the Fever. And we're just curious. We're both very curious on the fan response to the first game. And I'm assuming ESPN will have that. I have not looked at the schedule. Here's what's crazy, Mark. Do you realize that so women's college basketball ends April 7th. They draft on April 15th. Their season starts in May. How is that possible? How can that be? How can you? That's insane. I've never heard of it. That's how little I've known about WNBA. But like, you're telling me none of these, like Caitlin Clark does not get an off season?
That's not right.
I agree. It's very strange, but I know why they're doing it, right? We know why the WNBA has done it, because they want eyeballs, and I think they're trying to cover a period of time in which they can get eyeballs, as opposed to starting the NBA season or WNBA season when the NBA is starting, college football, NFL, all that. I get it, but may need to if the sport can gain popularity, and it's still a big if WNBA, maybe you think about moving that back even a couple of months to give some of these players a better offseason, young players.
No, I don't think you're crazy for doing that at all. I think that's a great idea.
I won't know any of that. I won't know anything about either team. I don't even know who they're playing.
You'll forgive me if I don't tune in for that.
I wouldn't have even known unless I knew about this whole Caitlin Clark thing and the first overall pick. If you had asked me what's the WNBA team in Indiana, I would not have been able to tell you.
I don't know one WNBA team. I couldn't name one.
Well, now you do. Indiana Fever.
The Indiana Fever.
I think Minnesota.
What a generic name. There's nothing in Indiana that connects itself to the name Fever. You usually make up a name that has something to do with the geographic region, the city, something. The Fever.
I believe Minnesota they're the Lynx, so that's Minnesota-esque. And let's see, Phoenix Mercury, I believe, right?
I don't know. The Cleveland Rockers were the original WNBA team, but we're talking about when they first opened shop.
LA Sparks.
Okay, that I heard of them.
Yeah. That's all I can name.
Yeah, I can't give you anything. We've got a super chat. Maybe we've got some guesses here. We've got funny if Caitlin Clark changed numbers to 103. Foreigner.
What does that mean, Mark?
I don't know. 103.
Is that
Foreigner, the group?
I'm assuming that's a song reference.
Yeah, 103. 103. I know the big Foreigner songs, but maybe that's a little deeper in the catalog.
Chicago Sky, Las Vegas Aces. See, Jason's bringing on. He may just be Googling this stuff.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
I've allowed us not just to go to women's college basketball, but down to the WNBA.
WNBA, wow. Mark. What will you say? What should be the reaction if, and I don't think this is going to happen, but the first Indiana Fever game, we just have record viewership for the post-game show? I'm sorry.
I will be applauding.
But how do I react? How do I react to that, Mark?
You keep it going.
I can't cover the WNBA. No, I don't think I can do that. I'm sorry. I don't think I can do that.
My only connection to the WNBA was when I believe it first launched, like 1997, 98, something like that. And the Ole Miss head basketball coach at the time, Van Chancellor, he was like the most successful WNBA coach early in their. He coached at Houston, whatever their name was. And when he left Ole Miss, he gave me a call. I remember at my desk at the sports directors in the sports department at WCBI, and called me to let me know that he was leaving Ole Miss to go to the WNBA.
Isn't there a Connecticut team? Are they the Mystics?
That sounds familiar.
There is
a Connecticut team. I don't know what their name is.
That's what I was thinking, because there was so much, obviously, UConn Husky women's basketball is so popular. They're trying to.
Yeah. They play down at the casino.
Okay. D. Rollison. D. Rollison answered the super chat question. He says, "Hot Blooded got a fever of 103." So, what is that name of that song? Hot Blooded.
Yes,
Hot
it is
Blooded.
hot-blooded.
Hot
Yeah,
Blooded. Okay.
yeah, I know that one well, but yeah. Well done. Right, folks, make it on back next Tuesday, and we will see you then. Nebraska Live in a half hour. Thanks for joining us.